My internship experience with WRCOG. As Mr. Benoit said, I am an MPP student at UCR, so the School of Public Policy that just opened last year, and we're part of the inaugural cohort. So I got to select my internship experience here with WRCOG. And part of our goal as policy students is to see sort of how policy affects local governments and state governments. And I chose WRCOG in particular because I would want it to focus on the sub-regional CAP, so Climate Action Program, and the Economic Development and Sustainability Framework. Two very important, shall we say, policies that I've gotten the experience kind of to look at from an international perspective. I got to attend a conference with a bunch of students last fall in Rome, and it was to discuss sort of smart cities and sort of quality of life programs. And that kind of got me interested in this topic and this perspective. And one of the little, I guess, little one-liners that comes out of conferences like this is think global, act local. And that's sort of what smart cities, I personally feel, kind of gets to, is we're thinking in a global perspective, how can we address very important and pressing problems that threaten not just our economic growth, but our communities and our air quality and our environment. So getting to sort of work in that arena, in that field of thinking globally but acting locally by looking at smart cities and how they can apply to cities here in Riverside County was really great. I think as an intern, most of the times you want to contribute to the agency that you're working with, and you don't always get the chance to. Not necessarily because your skills aren't valuable, it's just you don't ever get to really apply them the way that you would like them to. Apply them the way that you sort of learned. And with WRCOG, I actually got to do that. I got to apply what I've learned to the region and to the place that really is also my home. And that probably has been the most memorable experience here at WRCOG, aside from working with a bunch of staff members that are all very supportive and they collaborate and they just very, very hard workers. I think if in the future there are any opportunities, I would definitely consider coming back to WRCOG. And that's really why I'm here today, to thank you for that opportunity, to thank Mr. Bishop, to thank Barbara as well for giving me the chance to apply what I've learned. And also thank you to staff, especially Tyler and Anthony, who were the most supportive in helping me sort of see how I can translate that knowledge into a policy brief. So thank you again, and I hope you all have a good day.
Very good. Well, thank you. Thanks for joining us. We're being a part of our little community here for 10 weeks, and we're sorry to see you leaving, but we understand why. You'll probably get a better paycheck somewhere else. That's okay. All right. Our next public comment is Arnold San Miguel from SCAG.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Executive Committee. I'm Arnold San Miguel with SCAG. Just wanted to remind you, has everybody received this electronically, the California Housing Summit? So you probably have been bombarded by it. It's going to be October 11th, 8:30 to 2 p.m. at the Los Angeles Hotel. You can go there without driving. It's accessible by rail and transit. No charge to elected officials. Great opportunity to learn about all the resources available for actually making housing happen in the region. Information about breaking the myths about building additional housing in the region. And this event is primarily being orchestrated for elected officials. Hope you can make it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions? No? All right. With that, we're going to recess the WRCOG Executive Committee meeting for a moment and convene into the meeting of the Supporting Foundation. If anyone needs that agenda, it is in your packet right in front of you. It's a rather quick agenda. And that's got a separate roll call, right? Do we need to, any changes there? Yep. Janice, we okay?
I'm trying to get the PowerPoint back up.
Okay. And if there aren't any changes, we can go right into the public comments there. So is there anyone that wants to make a public comment on the foundation meeting?
I have none.
Okay. Organization will be June 5th of 2017. With that, we'll move to adjournment and back into the WRCOG meeting. Thank you all for enduring that exercise. And we are back into the regular WRCOG meeting onto the consent calendar. Anyone have any items they wish to speak to or pull on the consent calendar? Harupa Valley, I have you in the queue.
Is my okay? My mic's on.
There you
Sorry.
go.
I'd like to abstain on item A, please.
All right, you'll abstain on item A. Anyone else on the consent calendar? Was that Chuck? You want to do the same? All right, Supervisor Washington will also abstain from item A. All right, I've got a first by the City of Eastville. Hero Program Activities Update. Michael, come on down. And Michael is a new member of our staff, and this is his first presentation, right?
Yes, it is.
All right, well, welcome.
Sound okay?
Sounds great. Okay. Normally you don't look this good. It used to be low def, now it's high def. This is looking really good.
Hey, I'm trying. All right, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Michael Wasgut. I'm a program manager for WRCOG. Today I'm going to be giving you an update on the HERO program, which provides financing to residential and commercial properties for energy efficient water conservation and renewable energy projects. Financing is added to the property owner's tax bill for repayment. First slide is the overview of activities for the HERO program. As of right now, we have 352 jurisdictions participating in the California HERO program. So far, nearly 129,000 applications have been accepted, and almost 92,500 have been approved. That equates to about $5.4 billion in approved financing. And for our commercial program, administered by SAMAS, there are 34 projects that have been funded and completed, worth $3.4 million. We have another 83 projects that have been approved, worth nearly $22 million, and another 100 projects in the application pipeline, worth nearly over $28 million. This is the Western Riverside snapshot. Since January 2012 through the writing, there have been over 49,000 applications to the program. Over 33,000 approved projects funded worth $396 million. This equates to $686 million in economic impact to the region, nearly 1 billion gallons of water saved, 3,364 jobs created, and 296 gigawatt hours of energy saved in the subregion. And each of you should have a snapshot for your jurisdiction in your folder. Today I'm here to ask for you to approve the following changes to the WRCOG program report as well as the SAMUS commercial program handbook. First request is to implement a minimum financing amount of $25,000 for SAMUS commercial only. And the other request is to exempt four-unit multi-unit properties from gaining lender consent prior to financing. There's a gap between the CAFTA definition, which is 3 units, and the standard commercial lending definition, which is 5 units. So it leaves 4 in a kind of a no man's land. And so we'd like to remove the requirement for 4-unit properties to gain lender consent prior to approval. And we would also like you to approve the member jurisdictions of Half Moon Bay, Paradise, Redding, Watsonville, and Weed. So with that, I'd like to request 3 total actions. With the acceptance of the previous cities, I'd ask that you adopt Resolution 34-16, setting a public hearing for October 3rd, 2016. And, slid them both on one slide, sorry. Also accept the proposed changes to the WRCOG program report and SAMUS Capital program handbook. Thank you very much. I'll take any questions if you have them.
Anyone have any questions? I don't see anyone in the queue. Oh, Marietta, I think.
I have one question in regards to the 4 units.
Mm-hmm.
How does that affect? I mean, is that, if we're saying it's fine, was that a guideline set by WRCOG? So we're not going to have any problems with any of the financing institutions or lender institutions?
Theoretically, no. The problem is that most the 4-unit properties are held under residential loans, and so they don't quite have the same relationship. You don't know your lender versus commercial properties. They tend to have more of a relationship with their lender. It's a little bit easier to get lender consent when you have a commercial property. And so those 4-unit properties are typically held with a residential mortgage, and so it's a little difficult to gain that consent, and that's where it's held up the process, and SAMUS has asked that we adjust the definition to the 5 and more for commercial.
So, Rick, Mr. Bishop, so how does this, so this has no issue as we're going through this process when they're looking for financing that we get caught up, and we've had our issues with financial institutions, with real estate, with the Realtors Association. This is not going to throw a wrench into our works thus far.
No, it won't. Not with the residential side. It's a clarification on the commercial end of the program.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
All right. Unless there's any other questions, I think we're ready to bring this up for a vote or a motion. Not seeing anyone else in the queue. Barbara Spoonhauer with the administration of additional property assessed clean energy programs, or the administration of, okay, in the WRCOG sub-region. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. Barbara Spooner, Director of Energy and Environmental Programs. And I'm here today to talk about actions that the committee has taken regarding bringing in additional PACE providers into the WRCOG subregion. I also have Cliff Staten with Renew Financial here, who would like to say a few words after I'm finished with my presentation. Today, there's currently 10 PACE providers in addition to the HERO program that's looking to offer PACE services and funding throughout the WRCOG subregion. These are California First, PACE Funding, Clean Fund, Y-Green, Blue Flame, Alliance, NRG, Spruce Finance, Fig Tree, Energy Efficiency, Equity, as well as Structured Finance Associations. When you look at what our WRCOG member jurisdictions are doing, some of the member jurisdictions are adopting other PACE providers to operate in the subregion alongside the HERO program. The reason for this is competition among the multiple programs is generally viewed positively. However, there are still concerns about consistent consumer protections being adhered to between the various providers, and since this is a relatively new industry. In some instances, we do have member jurisdictions that are unaware that they may be bringing in more than one provider at a time based on one resolution. Your recent executive committee actions in June, you directed WRCOG staff to reach out to the other PACE providers to gain their interest in operating under a WRCOG umbrella. And this would achieve mutual objectives, which is expanding PACE opportunities to our constituents in the subregion, creating competition, and ensuring consumer protections are rigorous and consistent with how we implement our HERO program. Staff was then to vet the interested PACE providers and then return to the executive committee with recommendations. And regardless of the above, jurisdictions are still able to bring in additional PACE providers into their local jurisdictions without them being under WRCOG's umbrella. You did create an ad hoc committee to make recommendations to the executive committee. These our ad hoc committee members consisted Ben Benoit, Debbie Franklin, Jeff Gaiba, Laura Roten, and John Denver. We did receive interest from 3 PACE providers in writing: California First, Spruce Finance, as well as PACE Funding. However, PACE Funding has subsequently requested a drop from the process. August 3rd, the interested PACE providers did come down and were met with the ad hoc committee and interviewed. California First, to provide an overview, has been operational since 2009 with a relaunch in 2014. Their provider is Renew Financial. They are based out of Oakland. They do have 3 call centers, one in Allentown, Oakland, and Roseville. These 3 centers are actually connected together so that if a property owner calls and one call center in Roseville is unable to pick up, then Allentown or Oakland can pick up and have access to the exact same information to that call center in Roseville, so that the consumer is not aware of where that your customer service rep is, and there's no delay in the information being provided. They are offering a residential and commercial PACE program. They've levied over 5,000 assessments last year, with over 15,000 going on the tax roll this year. They do have 200 employees and are growing. And WRCOG did conduct a site visit on July 27th to check out their operations and ask them additional questions on how they operate their program. In regards to Spruce, they are new to PACE. They're expected to launch in the fall of 2016. They're based in San Francisco. However, they do have an underwriting office in Anaheim. They're offering a residential PACE program only. They currently offer consumer financing. They've been in our subregion and statewide and national for over 20 years in providing a consumer financing product that also includes an energy efficiency financing products, just not PACE. They have over 200 employees, and on August 23rd and 29th, WRCOG staff plus Mayor Pro Tem Gaiba conducted a site visit at their San Francisco as well as Anaheim facility. The general ad hoc committee impressions, they were impressed with California First information presentation and operations. They were concerned over Spruce's newness, but comfortable with their capabilities because of their consumer lending experience. They did agree that staff needed to conduct the site visit before coming back to the executive committee for action. The ad hoc committee directed us to then go back to Spruce and schedule a site visit, and recommended to the Admin and Finance Committee to bring forward California First under WRCOG's umbrella to be considered by the executive committee at today's executive committee meeting. So what does this all mean? Jurisdictions still have the option to do whatever they wish regarding additional PACE programs. Under WRCOG's umbrella, an accepted PACE provider operating an AB 811 program would launch in all the member jurisdictions without the individual jurisdictions needing to take action, unless your jurisdiction would like to exclude any one or all of the PACE providers under WRCOG's umbrella. And WRCOG will provide an opt-out resolution that you would be able to take to your council if that is your desire to move forward with. For all jurisdictions with existing additional PACE providers who are not under WRCOG's umbrella, business continues as usual. For jurisdictions with existing additional providers who are coming under WRCOG's umbrella, business as usual, but now that provider will bring that your jurisdiction under WRCOG's umbrella for oversight. So some of our recent steps and our next steps. We did staff did do its site visits August 23rd and 29th at Spruce. Our ad hoc committee met earlier today, September 12th, to discuss those findings. You are meeting today at the executive committee regarding bringing California First under WRCOG's umbrella at the recommendation of the Admin and Finance Committee. On Wednesday, September 14th, the Admin and Finance Committee will hear recommendations from the ad hoc committee regarding Spruce, and then we will be returning October 3rd to unveil what Admin and Finance recommendation is regarding Spruce in the future. That concludes my presentation, and I would like to bring Cliff Staten up to say a few words and then ask for the requested action.
Thanks, Barbara, and thanks, Mr. Chairman and committee. Cliff Staten, Executive Vice President of Renew Financial. And we administer the California First program for nearly 400 local governments in California. And I just wanted to first of all thank WRCOG and the Executive Committee for your leadership on PACE over these last number of years. Our CEO, Cisco DeVries, came up with the concept of PACE back in 2008, and we started our company and we're in contract with over 200 governments in 7 states in July of 2010 when the FHFA put out their guidance on PACE, and all of our work came to a screeching halt. And then in 2011, WRCOG stepped forward and really became the pioneer of PACE and the leader. And without your leadership, frankly, none of the rest of us would be here today. And so I want to thank you for that. We've had the opportunity over the last number of years to work side by side with Rick and Barbara on both PACE at the federal level, PACE at the state level. Vice Chair and I were up in Sacramento a number of times this year on AB 2693. And after all that time working together, we're really looking forward to the opportunity to serve the sub-region and the communities that you represent. So thanks for your display of confidence in us, and we look forward to partnering with you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our requested action is to direct and authorize the WRCOG Executive Director to enter into contract negotiations and execution of any necessary documents to include California First under WRCOG's PACE umbrella. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Very good. Anyone have any questions? I don't see anyone in the queue. No. item C, the CEQA cases in the WRCOG subregion and the SCAG region. Christopher Gray.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Chris Gray, the Director of Transportation. This item is being brought to you as a follow-up to materials that were presented to the Admin and Finance Department, as well as the request of Mr. Nagar, or Mike as he says I have to call him, regarding CEQA. And so what staff has done is we conducted an investigation regarding ongoing CEQA cases in the WRCOG region. We reviewed a report prepared for SCAG regarding ongoing CEQA litigation in the entire SCAG region, and we also wanted to briefly provide you some information on some previous efforts WRCOG has made in this regard. For anyone who's curious, there's currently 16 active CEQA cases in the WRCOG region. There's 20 countywide. These are cases in which CEQA is the primary cause of action. 5 of these 16 cases in the region involve agency-to-agency suits. 5 cases specific to one project, the World Logistics Center. This used to actually be 7 until 2 cases were recently settled. The majority of these cases involve new construction, a proposed project, with logistics being 7 of the 13. And most oftentimes, the challenge brought under CEQA is related to we call typical areas of impact. Either it's air quality, greenhouse gases, noise, traffic, or really all of them. We were also asked to look at who is bringing these suits besides the municipalities. There's a number of what we would call non-governmental organizations. Example is residents of intelligence planning, advocates for better community development. We're also asked to look at attorneys who bring this and determined that there was one attorney, Ray Johnson, who had been the lead attorney in 5 of the cases, 5 of the 16 cases. We then conducted an analysis of some material SCAG had provided related to CEQA litigation throughout the SCAG region. Outside of the WRCOG region, the majority of the CEQA litigation relates to housing projects. Approximately 1/3 of the lawsuits filed in the last 2 years relate to housing projects. Some of the other CEQA cases relate to public facilities and then also agencies. So about 2/3 of the projects, CEQA lawsuits relate to housing, some type of public infrastructure, or an agency plan, a general plan, a housing element, something of the like. What was very interesting is that of the projects that were brought against housing, the vast majority were infill housing. These were not greenfield projects. These were infill housing projects, many of them in Los Angeles, Orange County, other areas of the SCAG region. And what they found is that oftentimes it's higher density residential projects. So these were infill, higher density residential projects in the region were being targeted by the CEQA cases. That's not our experience here, but that is the experience region-wide. This report, which was attached to your staff report, noted that in many cases the CEQA guidelines were being used to challenge a project. In a sense, in the terms of the authors, there were 2 attorneys who authored this study on CEQA litigation in the SCAG region. They noted that there was a requirement to prove the negative, basically prove there was no impact for either traffic or greenhouse gases. We did want to provide a little brief information. There is some information in the staff report regarding previous WRCOG efforts. Back in 2013, there was a resolution adopted by the board related to what was called CEQA modernization. WRCOG has participated in the statewide working group, and WRCOG has also made efforts with RCT previously to address this issue. And the requested action on this is to discuss and provide input. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right. Temecula, go right ahead, Mike.
Thank you. Chris, thanks for that staff report and all the work that you've put into it thus far and the useful information. And thank you, my esteemed colleagues, for listening to me. And if I say something that might seem elementary and you all know, forgive me ahead of time. CEQA is a great law. It was implemented because in California we're all environmentally conscious, and what it does is create a criteria for studying the impact of projects, all projects in the state of California. And that way, once a proper study is done, then the legislative agency could look at all the studies and decide how mitigation is applied, if any mitigation is needed, or saying it's not worth having the project because the impact is too much. It's a great tool and it's appropriate. But much like ADA lawsuits have occurred abusing Americans with Disability Act laws, which was also a good law when it started, sometimes the CEQA lawsuits can be abused. Much of what we find under these CEQA lawsuits are challenges to the studies themselves. And what ends up happening is, as you mentioned with greenhouse gas, a group will form, usually under the tutelage or request of an attorney, and they'll say, well, I'm simplifying it, you didn't study greenhouse gases properly. You used 300 milligram emissions when it could have been it should have been 250 or what have you. Therefore, we're going to challenge it. And there's very little criteria or bar that goes into such a challenge. And currently, the way the law is written, that the challenger does not suffer the consequence of having to pay any sort of attorney fees. And so what happens, the applicant or the proponent typically has to indemnify the municipality or the county for the legal action and has to foot the cost. If he happens to survive the cost of the litigation, what they do is just get to go on. But that's typically hundreds of thousands of dollars and months of time wasted. So typically, these cases get settled. Almost for an amount of money or as a get-out-of-jail-free card and maybe some ancillary environmental fluff just to sort of make everybody on the plaintiff end feel okay. I wanted to also suggest that not only is it costing applicants thousands in attorney's fees, but it also raises the cost of or becomes a disincentive in our communities for certain projects to move forward when you consider the cost of litigation afterwards, particularly if they're larger projects or different projects. It also delays the needed infrastructure. We're experiencing that right now with the lawsuits against the Mid-County Parkway, and certainly the one that was recently filed against the expansion of the 60 freeway. Mm-hmm. Certainly when it delays that infrastructure, it also puts into peril some of the grants and financing we get that are dependent or time sensitive. Those delays in development is often needed economic development. So sometimes we'll approve a project in our requisite cities. We believe that it's the right thing to do because it will stimulate economic development, and the lawsuits such as that stop that. In that vein, it also takes the decision-making power out of the hands of us elected officials who have been put in place to make those decisions, and places the rise and fall of a project, if you will, into an unelected judge. And not that some of the judges are bad, but a judge in downtown Riverside can't not know the dynamics of any particular city. It doesn't know what's on the ground or the needs or the desires or the will of the people or the actual decision-making process that was made while that city council, duly elected city council, I might add, deliberated and decided to approve the project. So I'm going to ask my colleagues if we can form a subcommittee. The idea is not to try to eliminate CEQA. As I said earlier, it's a good law. But it needs some sort of legislative change. And so maybe the subcommittee can look into evaluating and consolidating information between the cities and Riverside and also other COG agencies. Talk to SCAG, as you had mentioned. Start talking again, collaborating with RCTC, reaching out to other regions, and also looking at our legislative platform. And just in general, starting to gather information. We can make this a better law, but I think like we've tightened up ADA laws and frivolous lawsuits, I think that we now need to look at this. We're at perilous economic times. We need traffic improvements, and also our city councils know what they're doing to have frivolous lawsuits filed in those decisions taking the hands out of our city councils cause us to suffer economically. So that would be my request of this group. How many people would be on the subcommittee? I'm not certain. I would look to staff for advice, and then we can get together. And certainly what I've mentioned here is not an exhaustive list. I just wanted to light the spark to get this dialogue going. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, I have some other members on the queue. Norco?
I understand where you're coming from on the CEQA, and then I'm also very familiar with the NEPA process. The problem is sometimes consultants are hired guns, and I know city councils have approved a lot of things. The Carnegie Library was knocked to the ground because there was no CEQA. We have issues on NEPA in our own Navy base here where they say there's no history whatsoever. We have issues with a migratory riparian area that consultants come in and say, oh, don't worry, it's all fine. So I want to make sure that we always temper any kind of challenges to CEQA and NEPA with the idea that there's no standard of consultantship, meaning you're a hired gun and sometimes you'll give what your client wants you to give. It's very, very difficult for a private entity to take on a larger entity, and it's always viewed as, oh gee, it's just a frivolous, and I'm not saying your issues aren't valid, I'm really not saying that at all. It's just I've had experience on both ends, and the truth is I'd rather err on the side of either preserving the environment or the things that we need to do to make sure, I mean, ultimately, are the studies accurate? If people weren't trying to fudge their studies, we wouldn't be having these problems. So if you put a committee like that, I'd love to be part of it and to maybe give that angle. And I also do see the validity of what you're saying, so I just want to put in my 2 cents.
All right. Marietta?
I guess my question is, and not that I'm opposed to having another subcommittee because we seem to create a lot of them, but I guess my question is, to what end? This organization is not going to change CEQA. We, I think, probably have a lot of people sitting up here in the dais who agree to the extent of what changes need to happen within CEQA. But unless we get something, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Bishop, correct me if I'm wrong, but unless we get somebody at the state level who's willing to take on the reformation of the CEQA document, there will be no changes, and this will simply be a process of us kind of going round and round about what we like and don't like about CEQA.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add to that end, the direction from Mayor Nagar is fairly general. I think at the very least we could do some additional information sharing. I'd also point out that there's no specific CEQA reform language in our legislative platform. Or modernization. There's no specific call to that. So there may be a handful of items we could do. We could do a more expansive scope, but I would also note that it appears that we haven't touched this directly in maybe 18 months or so. It looks to have been a little bit of time before we've made any, the research we did was all brand new. It doesn't appear that we've done anything up until this point, so there may be some validity in doing taking some actions.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, and I'm not trying to say that I don't agree with doing something what Mike was saying, Mayor Nagar was saying, but I guess I'm looking for more specificity, being more specific, and what we're trying to accomplish. Because I mean, I get the presentation and I get the concerns, but we need to have some very specific goals in what we're trying to do or what we're trying to accomplish. Otherwise, it just becomes another agency subcommittee that we've created.
Rick gets more to add, or?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the general nature of this, and I think we can take general and make it fairly specific. So if there's a desire to form an ad hoc committee, we can certainly do so. And I think our task would be one of trying to put a fence around what the issue really is and what the problem is that we're really trying to solve. One thing that comes to mind is that we could share, we could sort of plant the seed on this issue with CalCog. That's the statewide organization of councils of governments, and I'm certain that there would be a considerable amount of interest in doing that. But really, when you talk about CEQA reform, or I think the better phrase, the one that's being used more often these days, is CEQA modernization, is to coalition build. And so I think it would be a pretty significant effort for us to do so. We're happy to do that. I agree with with Mr. Lane that, WRCOG by itself cannot make the change, but I think maybe we can plant the seeds and help build the coalitions to come up with something that might help us get there.
Mike, you want to add something?
Yeah, thank you. Am I on? Okay, thank you. Yeah, Mr. Bishop, that you put it perfectly. It's the coalition build. Certainly, to what end? If the committee gets together and starts to look at these issues, it's to strive to make a better CEQA law. That's why we're all here. That's why we get together as a council of governments. And we'll look at where it works. We'll look at where it doesn't. We'll then create a legislative platform where it's necessary. And then we'll find people up in Sacramento in collaboration with other COGs and other agencies that are affected by this as well. And we'll all collaborate and speak with one voice, not only on both sides of the issue. I want to make it real clear, particularly to my colleague from Norco, because I share your concerns. Open space, environmentalism, all of those things are very good. It what makes Riverside very special. But on the other side, there's a lot of abuse as well. And so I think what we do is we flush all those things out and then begin talking with one voice.
Okay, I'm not seeing anyone else in the queue.
So I would make that motion. Do I need to be specific, Mr. Chair, Mr. Bishop, as to what the motion I'm desiring, or to form an ad hoc committee to study CEQA issues and bring back information to the executive board? Is that sufficient?
I think it's good. Yep.
Okay, very good. That'd be my motion.
Do we need a vote on this, or I believe this is the chair's prerogative to create the committee, right?
The chair has authorization to create an ad hoc committee.
Okay.
So moved.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chris, and don't go away. You're up for next for the item D, WRCOG Transportation Department. Oh, sorry, I skipped one. No, C was CEQA. All right, item D, WRCOG Transportation Department Activities Update. Chris?
So this is there are 4 requested items, but this is also an update item as well. During our August meeting, we were directed to, the Executive Committee directed staff to form an ad hoc committee to review the options for the Nexus study. 3 persons appointed to that committee were Rusty Bailey, Jeff Gaiba, and Jeff Hewitt. And since then, we have met with our technical advisory committee, our city managers, and the 3 gentlemen who volunteered for that effort, Rob Johnson from Menifee, Grant Yates from Lake Elsinore, and Gary Thompson. And then our public works directors at our meeting last week took action to request that they be allowed to appoint 3 persons to this ad hoc to assist the elected officials with the review of the options related to the Nexus study. It was Art Vella from the city of Banning, Craig Bradshaw from the city of Eastvale, and Patty Romo from the county, based on direction from Supervisor Jeffries. So we now have an ad hoc committee which is composed of roughly half of all the WCOG jurisdictions. It is very broadly drawn. We have some big cities, small cities. We thought it was imperative to have the county on this committee as well. And we'll be scheduling meetings once you vote to confirm the ad hoc later today. We anticipate those meetings will be at the end of September and will continue throughout the month of October. We wanted to give everyone who either is on the ad hoc or interested in the ad hoc some idea of the materials that we'll be presenting. We have compiled and will continue to compile a variety of information: the historical TUM schedule, revenue by land use category, a summary of our fee analysis study that we'll be presenting later today, our response to comments, the previous Nexus study, the current projects which are programmed, and the list of overall projects. The intention is to provide as much material initially so we don't are delayed by weeks as we receive requests. So if anyone is on the ad hoc and you have additional materials, please let us know, and we'll be happy to compile those as well. I just want to, for those of you who weren't at the August meeting, just reiterate the potential options regarding the Nexus study. Our intention is for the board to take some action on a Nexus study, and so we've identified 4 potential options. One action is no action. A second action is to adopt the Nexus study as is. There's a variety of options relating to phasing in, reducing the cost of projects, or eliminating projects. And these options will be considered by the ad hoc. We want to give everyone an update on the Nexus study schedule, so we're continuing to work on finalizing the study. We'll be meeting with our ad hoc in September, October. We have a variety of stakeholder meetings coming up, mostly to talk about the fee study, but we'll be talking about the schedule and the Nexus study. After the ad hoc, we'll then proceed to our regular standing committee meetings, and then potentially bring this forward in roughly February, though that will depend on the schedule for the ad hoc. And then we'll be presenting an item later to our comprehensive fee study, but we've scheduled 2 stakeholder workshops to discuss the fee study with representatives of the development community. We're holding 2 workshops later this month, one on September 21st and one on September 28th. We expect that people will ask us about the Nexus study as well, so we'll be presenting schedule, options, other information like that. But this meeting is to also talk about our fee study. And then we're also bringing to you 3 reimbursement agreements. Reimbursement agreements are legal documents executed between WRCOG and the cities, which allow cities to spend TUNF money. 2 of those are with the Riverside Transit Agency, one for a mobility hub at UCR, about approximately $3.5 million. The second for a transit facility at the Promenade Mall in Temecula for about 1.7, and then an agreement for an initial set of improvements at the SR 79 I-15 interchange in Temecula for an initial value of about $2 million. So we have 4 actions we're bringing to you forward today. One is to approve the representatives of the Nexus Study Ad Hoc Committee from the Public Works and Technical Advisory Committees. Second is the RTA Mobility Hub reimbursement for UCR. The third is the Promenade Mall Mobility Hub. And then the fourth is the City of Temecula for the Winchester Road I-15 interchange project. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, I have the City of Corona in the queue.
Thank you. I don't have a question, but I just want to reiterate, since not everybody was at our last meeting when we discussed the Nexus study, that I want to remind everybody, because we've had no update for quite a while, a number of developments have, well, all the developments from the last time have been subject to the previous fee structures. And as we move forward and the ad hoc committee looks at some of the proposals, whether we put the fee structure in immediately or put it in over time, the developments that have been ongoing have had about a 3-year from at least the time that it would be adopted, basically ability to go by the old fee structure. So I think we need to keep that in mind as we move forward, and we need to encourage projects within our own jurisdictions to try to move forward now while they are subject to the existing fee structure, because I think we all know what's going to happen. As this starts ramping up, we're going to have people from the housing, retail, and commercial industrial development communities that are going to be upset with any new, if there are any new increases, and that we need to encourage them to move forward now rather than to delay their projects. So I just want to make sure that we're all aware that they have that ability, and make sure they are aware that they have that ability to move forward now at the current fee structure. Thank you.
All right, I have District 1 in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're talking about the fee study, and sometimes I think we forget that we should probably be looking at the projects list study. This is a wish list that gets developed by every city and county jurisdiction as to the projects they want funded. And human nature is to ask for as much as you can get. And the consequence of that is fees that nobody can afford to build here anymore. When the initial study came out, we were looking at such dramatic draconian fee increases for those of us who want to attract jobs and good pay and good tax revenues. We were done. I mean, the fees were going to be so high that you'd build any place in Southern California except Riverside County. So we have to balance this, and I'm wondering who's going to be the adult in the room and say, we can't have every single project that every single city and county representative wants. Where does that discussion occur?
Well, that would be one of the options for moving the Nexus study forward is to pair projects out of the network. That's option 4. So that would be for consideration by our 3 elected officials in the ad hoc, as well as we'll have to bring the Nexus study forward to you all for consideration. And so we're balancing a number of considerations. Yes, it is a wish list, but we have also been aggressively taking projects out. We've paired $200 million in projects from the network. We think there may be opportunities to further reduce that. And so what I would say is the initial thought on that will come from members of the ad hoc, but we are happy to meet with anyone at any time to talk about their options, their inputs, their thoughts, their considerations. And I can say that removing projects from the network is a very defensible, straightforward way to move a Nexus study forward. And so we've made every effort to do that, and we will continue to look at that. And we are not interested in bringing a Nexus study that has projects that aren't needed. So.
Question is, who decides need versus want?
Well, the way that our program is structured is it's the city's programs. It's the member agencies. And we have a series of criteria which say that a project must have a certain traffic volume, must have a certain congestion benefit, and must be over 4 lanes. Must be 4 lanes or over. In fact, we've identified some projects in our initial modeling that may no longer be needed. So our approach is to first go through the quantitative exercise, but I would also say that we've done everything we can, and an example is the city of Riverside removed a project, I believe it's the Overlook Bridge, which was a $15 million project. The city told us they weren't going to be building in the next 20 years. The project came out, and it was a $15–20 million savings to the. So we have taken projects out, and many of our member agencies have. We've taken out projects that are complete or partially complete as well. So I would say, but that if the ad hoc wants us to move forward more in that regards, that would be the direction we'd ask them to give us initially.
Very good. Thank you.
Temecula?
Take me out of the queue. I have my question answered. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? I'm actually not seeing anyone else in the queue. Rick, did you have something you want to add or no? Nope. Okay.
I'll move the item.
So this is a study that we've been working very closely with your staffs on, and so we've completed 3 key elements of this study so far. We have a couple that are in process, but the way the study is constructed is we identified a series of typical developments for the WRCOG region. We call them development prototypes. The reason why we use prototypes is it's very hard to compare fees without having an apples-to-apples comparison. So once we developed the development prototypes, presented those to your planning directors, we conducted a survey of the existing fees in the WRCOG area, and then we did a study of fees in neighboring jurisdictions, particularly CVAG, Beaumont, and portions of San Bernardino County that border the WRCOG region. We have, as I said, a little bit of work left to do. We're looking at the relationship between fees and other development costs. the economic benefits of transportation infrastructure, as well as we're running a series of pro formas to determine what the impacts of any fee increases or changes in the fee might be on overall project feasibility. So this is a quick run-through of our development prototypes. Our consultant looked at actual projects on the market, so we determined that on average, in our region, the average single-family house is about 2,700 square feet, and on average, it's about on a 6,000 lot. Obviously, some cities have larger houses, some cities have smaller houses, but this was the average. Average multifamily project is about 200 units. Average industrial project was about 265,000 square feet of building. Average retail is actually on the small size, about 10,000 feet. Average office is about 20,000 feet. We picked these categories because these are the top 5 categories in which we receive TUMP funding. This accounts for the vast majority of TUMP receipts which we get. And so while there may be a few other types of development, for example, hotels, other items like that, they were not felt to be the typical development. So this is a chart that shows you the highs and lows. What we found in general is that most cities have fees about in the same range. There's a few outliers. There tends to be within the region, most of the cities have about, so for example, for single family, most cities, the fee is 40 to 45,000. Handful of jurisdictions that are on the low end, handful of jurisdictions that are at the high end. One of the questions we were asked to look at was how do the fees from the different agencies contribute to fee levels? So the way you read this chart is the black or dark gray or dark blue or purple, whatever that is TUMP, blue is water. Green would be city fees, the light gray is school fees, and then the top orange is a regional fee, MSHCP and other agencies. So what we find is that for most development types, the TUMP is 19 to 20%. However, for the retail, the TUMP is almost 45% of the fee. So this is our comparative analysis. So on the single family side, we found on average that within the WRCOG region, there's the fee is roughly equivalent to what's charged in San Bernardino County for the same type of house. Beaumont's a little bit lower. Coachella Valley is significantly lower. On the multifamily side, WRCOG is slightly lower than some of these neighboring jurisdictions. Coachella Valley is significantly lower. One of our findings was the fees charged on retail uses are significantly higher in the WRCOG region, and this is due to a variety of reasons. One, it's the TUMP. 2, it is water fees, and 3, they are city fees. But on average, the fee on a retail, on a per square foot basis, is about double what it is in all the neighboring jurisdictions. And on the industrial side, these are all roughly comparable. We were asked to look at the city of Beaumont by our friends in Banning and Calamasa, and we found out, for example, their fee is quite a bit higher for industrial. WRCOG's fee is slightly lower compared to San Bernardino County. And then on the office, we see something very similar. WRCOG is roughly comparable to San Bernardino County. One of the items I want to address is we often get questions about the TUMP. San Bernardino doesn't have a TUMP like WRCOG does. But what San Bernardino County does is they require their local jurisdictions to adopt a local diff, which is rolled into their city fee. So for example, if you look at the far right bar, this is San Bernardino County average, you see that the city diff for an office is roughly 56% of the fee. That's because a fee that would normally be the TUMP is getting rolled into the city fees. As an example, in the city of Yucaipa, they charge a single family fee of $8,800 per single family dwelling unit as a local city traffic mitigation fee. Surprisingly, that happens to be exactly what the WRCOG single family residential TUMP fee is. So I just want to address it that has come up before. Jurisdictions will say, well, San Bernardino County doesn't charge a TUMP. No, but we find that they charge a lot more in local city fees. So our preliminary conclusions is that total fees by development type tend to be very similar. There are some outliers, obviously. We also acknowledge that many of the fees are outside of the direct control of the city. So a city, if we go back to these bars, the green bar is the city. All the other bars for this type of development are outside of the control of the city. The WRCOG fees are very comparable to San Bernardino County for all uses except retail. The retail fees are uniformly higher. than any other region, and they're higher not just because of the TUMF, but because of the fees, water and sewer fees, as well as local city diff fees as well. So with that, Mr. Chairman, this is a receive and file item, and I will be happy to answer your questions. I did want to add that this has been shared with the Planning Directors Committee 3 times. It's been shared with the Public Works Committee 3 times, and we presented it late last month to our city managers as well as we've provided this to staff for review. So this has been through multiple rounds of reviews. We've also had outreach meetings with friends in the development community, and we'll be having further outreach meetings with developers this month to review the study. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. I'm not seeing anyone in the queue. Oh, there we go. Harupa Valley, Flora?
I was just curious, are the numbers proprietary, or will there be like a detailed breakdown city by city what each charges?
We provided each city with roughly a 20-page report. So it went to your city manager, your city public works director, and your city planning manager, which has a breakdown of each fee by each district. So for example, in Yarupa Valley, we discovered that one of the fees the city has no control over are regional trail fees charged by the Yarupa Regional Parks District, JARP, something like that, to that end. So we provided that information to each of the city staff. That will also be an appendix in our report. So we've shared all our calculations with city staff members for their review and comment as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Calamasa?
Yeah, Chris, on that traffic mitigation fee from Ukaipa at $8,800, is it apples to apples, or is that more used for, you know, resurfacing all the surface streets and everything? In other words, you know, when we look at, for instance, the city of Loma Linda, I know they go ahead and repave almost all their streets every 6 years. They have a particular fee that goes in for that. You know, with the TUMP fees, it has to be a major deal. You know, so I mean, are we comparing apples to apples on that?
We are, because what San Bernardino County requires is that when they bring a project forward, they have a local match or a local share. So that money that the city of Ukaipa collects has to go for projects that are being funded by San Bernardino County through their sales tax measure. So our interpretation is it's for larger regional infrastructure versus just repaving the roadways. We're happy to look into that to verify that, but we found that in Ontario, Fontana, Rialto, and a number of the other San Bernardino County agencies that we looked at.
Well, and certainly they do have some interchanges and things going on, so they're getting it somewhere. But yeah, I'd be interested in knowing that one to see how it actually measured up. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll be happy to look into that further.
All right, anyone else? Not seeing anyone else in the queue. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so I had no items pulled for discussion. On to the report from the WRCOG Technical Advisory Chair, Gary Nordquist. Gary, who's Gary? Gary is my city manager. So for those of you that don't know, Gary Nordquist is my city manager. He's joined us for the year here. And thank you for joining us, Gary. Do you have anything to report?
Thank you.
Oh, gotta hit the microphone on button there.
Brenda? Oh.
There you go.
Okay, thank you for that recognition. Yes, just a few comments of the TAC meeting that was held on August 18th at 9:30 in the morning. I had a brief meeting. It ended about 11:45. We had a number of items for discussion, and Chris was kind enough to point out that Grant Yates from the city of Lake Elsinore, Rob Johnson from the city of Menifee, and Gary Thompson from the city of Yarupa Valley have all volunteered to participate in the ad hoc committee for the completion of the Nexus study review. Initially, that was going to be a 2-member volunteer project, but we had so much excitement, we expanded it to 3 members. So looking forward to their participation on the completion of that study. Also had several presentations, particularly the one by Tyler Masters about the regional streetlight program, the activities and how that's progressing. And what was encouraging, what was revealing about that, besides it being an encouraging and exciting project, was the fact of representing the cities with the CPUC when we look at different rates for powering and providing electricity for the streetlights. So it's an interesting component to add to that project. And that was primarily it. We look forward to our next meeting this Thursday. And if you have anything that you would like me to bring back to the city managers of the community, I'd be glad to do that. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Gary. Anyone have any questions? Not seeing any. All right, we'll go on to the report from committee members. SCAG. Debbie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Nope, not yet.
Am I
There you
on?
go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm on the Community Services and Housing Committee. We had several presentations. One in particular was on the Sustainable Planning Grants call for proposals. There are 3 project categories: active transportation, integrated land use, and green region initiatives. And the application workshop will be the week of October the 17th. The application deadline is November the 18th. So for any city or agency that wants more information, it's on the SCAG website. We also had a presentation on industry clusters in Southern California, the changing face of jobs and manufacturing in California and Southern California, employment and competitiveness. It was presented by the Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation, and they gave a lot of information, information about employment, where jobs have gone from, where they're going to. And the whole presentation is about 15 pages. It is on the SCAG website. In my committee, we had a lot of discussion about the presentation. We didn't really agree with what they were talking about because they didn't take into consideration jobs such as automotive, really education. We felt that there was some lacking information about what the job industry is going to look like in the future, and the future being 2020. So if you're interested in that presentation, it is online. And we probably will have some more presentations coming back to us because our speaker got challenged a little bit in our committee. Thank you.
Nothing wrong with a few dissenting comments, so that's good. All right. The next report is actually for me from the Air Quality Management Board. And actually, I'll just do a quick update. Next month, we'll have staff here from AQMD actually presenting on our air quality mitigation plan that's coming forward. So look forward to that next month. We'll skip this month. And next is our report from Executive Director, Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things to mention. First, I wanted to introduce Ishelle Acosta. Ishelle is one of our new HERO program staff technicians, given the increased workload, so we're happy to have her. She's been here for a few weeks and she's still with us, so that's great. Appreciate having. Secondly, I wanted to mention that our regional streetlight demonstration area in the city of Hemet is now open, and this has been a collaborative effort between us and the city of Hemet. We thank Hemet for allowing us to be able to retrofit a number of city-owned streetlights with technologies from 12 different vendors who are all vying to participate in the process. So there are 5 different areas in the city of Hemet. We will be conducting tours, probably at night for obvious reasons, so that people can experience the different streetlight technologies and also comment on them. So there's surveys that people can take online. There's actually QR codes that are on the poles, and people can take surveys right on site. So we're really pretty excited about that. You'll be seeing some media release outreach information occurring this week. So the demonstration area will actually be active for a long time. We hope that by about January we'll have enough information compiled where we can come back to the jurisdictions with some recommendations on what people thought. So it'll be really important for the cities, and in particular, we're interested in getting your public safety personnel out there so that they can view the street light technologies and give us their input on that. And then lastly, I wanted to recognize Donna Dean. Donna Dean has been with us since February of 2005. She is our TUMP program manager, and she has decided that she's got better things to do. So she's going to be retiring September the 22nd, and while she's making her way up here, I know our chair wanted to head down there to give her a gift and take a picture. But Donna has really been integral to us. She is a detail-oriented person. She has been responsible for many aspects of the TUMP program and working very closely with our public works directors, creating our transportation improvement programs. She's put a ton of time into the long and arduous Beaumont lawsuit, and matter of fact, much of the information that she compiled and recorded over time was really integral into the success on our end of that. So we are going to miss her terrifically. She's put in a great 11 years with WRCOG, and it'll be very hard to replace her, but we're hopeful to hear great things from what she does in her next steps.
Thank you, Rick. It's been a long time that I've been behind the scenes, but now I'm going to come out from behind. And a lot of you
pull a
have
public comment card for that.
yeah.
Go ahead.
A lot of you have changed since just 2005, and some I remember from the beginning. So it's been a pleasure. I've worked with all your cities. Your staff has done a wonderful job. They too realize the value of TUMF just like we do. And I'm going to miss you all. I'm going to miss staff, miss everyone. Thank you.
We'll miss you too.
Yeah.
Thank you. And when you're looking for the flowers later, Jennifer took them. All right. With that, we'll move on to items for future agendas. Any members have any items for future agendas? Not seeing any. General announcements. Any members have any general announcements? None? All right. Well, I have one quick one. Rick, just had to mark a little anniversary here. You've been with us for 16. Don't look at her. I was just me. Don't pick on staff now. Come on. But 16 years, you've been the lead of this organization, and we just really appreciate it. I took the time to drop a little letter, and I won't share it, but I want to give this to you and just say thank you for 16 years of service to this wonderful organization. And we all know you do a wonderful job for us, so thank you. All right, with that, we'll move to adjournment to our next meeting. Our next meeting will be here October 3rd at 2 o'clock. And thank you all for participating in the new voting system. I think it worked pretty well. And we'll all get through it next time. Thanks.